know if I'm just not in the mood to get into this right now, or if I'm like exhausted over having these conversations, or what the thought is. But my oversimplification of this whole driver value in motorsports conversation right now, my oversimplification of it is, we can come up with all these cool dynamics and algorithms for how the prize money should be distributed and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, what I think, oversimplified, what I think the problem is in driver value is that there's nobody that represents the drivers. The drivers in no form of motorsports are properly represented or properly unified.
Well, in F1 they had the driver, the GPDA, Grand Prix Driver Association.
Yeah, NASCAR has had their driver council.
Yeah,
but there's no unified driver representation has ever actually wielded their power.
Yeah.
Right? In the history of motorsports.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that as a result, you have this lack of driver value or lack of realized value. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because drivers have value, right? Just like Hinch was saying on his podcast, the fans come there to see the drivers in his belief, right? And I think that there's a lot of that I agree with. But I think that, the drivers are undervalued in motorsports because they just haven't really fully unified and organized and wielded the power that they do have and the leverage that they do have. So they've just continued to be, devalued by the teams in the leagues, who have wielded their own powers in their own different ways and been able to keep the focus on their priorities. Look what happens. Look what's happened in NASCAR with the RTA and charters over the last decade, right? Like that has been the sole focus. That has been and I'm not even trying to say that it's like a us versus them or a, intentional battering of driver value. I just think that like the team owners in 2015, 14 took center stage, right?
Yep.
When it came to all these conversations and negotiations and organizations, and they absolutely wielded their power. They, behind closed doors and in negotiations threatened, lockouts and shutdowns and, holdbacks and all the stuff there is. And they, took all the air out of the room when it came to negotiating who gets what piece of what pie of the sport. And there's never... over the whole course of this, has there been a unified group of drivers that have done their own version of that? There's been attempts.
Still is right now.
Yeah,
Jeff
there's
Burton
been attempts made.
It up. Yeah.
But none have ever actually gotten any real traction, in my opinion.
And this whole thing started without people realizing when the sponsors started to leave, they were the ones that truly associated with the driver, right? Now maybe they were the team, whatever, but they utilized the driver as the core piece of their marketing.
Mm-hmm.
That as they left, that sort of leverage for the driver left with it, right? Then it was like, well, teams should hire drivers for performance, but then you have a model with the charter that guarantees money. So now suddenly that performance is maybe, even in the mid tier and the lower tier teams, not as important because the money is basically guaranteed at that point. So now you devalue them further, right? And what the driver offers and what they can achieve and do for the team. And eventually you end up in a place where they have no representation to stop any of this. The teams are also in an association together. So if you're negotiating with two teams, they can easily just give you the same contract. So there's no negotiation power, which has happened. And so eventually you're in a highly competitive market as a driver with a non-competitive process as to how you get your ride, if that makes sense.
It is. I do not, for the sake of being open-minded, I do not want to rule out the possibility that this just is a result of the free market at play in motorsports. It is possible, right?
That it was always going to go this way, you're saying.
That it was always going to go this way, that it's meant to go this way, that maybe the drivers aren't as valued as we think they are. I don't know. I don't want to rule that out because racing in by nature, motorsports is very free market based, right? Like most forms of motorsports over time have allowed race teams to come in and out of the series, drivers to move freely in and out of the series. You know, there haven't been, you know, a lot of, what am I trying to say? I don't know. They haven't like locked in a lot of things in the same way that we've seen charters in recent years in NASCAR. So NASCAR has been a very free market based, motorsports has been a very free market based business. So it is possible that this is just a result of that, and drivers aren't as valuable as we think they are, and it still has to have a car on the track, and it takes a lot of money to invest in a car to make it go fast. The driver can't just race on his own, right?
Yeah.
Like there's some legitimate debate to all that. And it, like I said, what we're seeing could be a result of that free market dynamic. It's just interesting to me that you have other sports, right, where, you know, the athletes are extremely well organized and have been for quite some time. So they have this, you know, deep decades and decades of development and strength and organization behind them that wields this power that allows them to take up, you know, to command so much of the value of the sport, right? To the point that the NFL, you know, literally was in lockdown. Did not know if they were going to have a season for periods of time. The NBA has gone through the same thing, right?
The MLB,
the MLB, thing. They've all gone through these things, and you know, the leagues and the owners have had to come to agreement with the players, right? And you don't know, it makes you wonder if right now it takes $10 million or $15 million to field a car and $2 million to hire a driver.
Yep.
Right? And in the NFL, it takes $15 million to fund a roster and $2 million to operate it. Right? It's the other way.
Yep.
I might
You're
be
using
wrong.
You're simplifying the numbers, but yeah, no, I get
I'm trying to simplify the numbers, and I might be wrong, but like that's my perception of it, right? So if you disagree, let me know. But it makes me wonder if the NFL was completely, you know, did not have players unions and didn't operate the way that it currently does. If it operated more similar to most motorsports, would these teams have invested way more money in infrastructure and technology to make the teams better, and then their rosters would be way lower, or is there, you know, obviously there's huge differences because in a sport like football, the player literally is your race car, right? There's probably only so much you can invest in computer programs and simulation models before you still need a 400-pound big boy on the front line on the offensive line.
Real big boy.
Anyways,
we should probably, if this is going to make it in here, we should say, hey, this is Friday morning chatter amongst Landon Castle and myself. This is what we do. We just discuss and debate the merits of redesigning the financial structure of Motorsports Series, as was happening this morning in a group chat that we're in, that stem from the idea of drivers not having value. Therefore, how do we change the value? Do you remove the charter system and go to a prize money, fully just prize money finish incentive-based program, which we had ChatGPT do some work on, and it ended up a bit lopsided. Joe Logano would have made about $53 million in this perceived deal. John Hunter Nemechek would have been about $6.7 million. That's not just the driver; that's for the team and him included. So, it is, you know, there's something there maybe in the performance incentivization side of things as to how to increase driver value, but I just don't. I think there's points though, like where with the charters, with the what do you call it? Stages, right? The stages proved, if you look at the numbers, the rich get richer. And what I mean by that is if you run really well and you're one of the fastest, best teams, all the stages did was increase your gap to the midfield and the lower teams, because you're going to primarily be in the top 10. So now you're being rewarded 3 times in the race for running in the top 10 versus, you know, where a small team can just get a good finish at the end. That's a huge change when there's no stage points. Now stage points just rewarded the rich. If you just completely change the model so that winning is everything, then you really will probably kill most of the series, because one or a couple entities will just absolutely take over and win because they're already the fastest, best teams. So that's the problem, right? Because that's how you end up towards the charter system, which gives guaranteed money, so those smaller teams have something to work off of, and they can plan ahead and that sort of stuff. But it can cause complacency, where eventually exactly how much money you're going to make. There's no real increase for running better that's discernible to where you're at. So therefore, it's okay, who just brings the most money? That makes our gap bigger. Maybe there's a profit at the end, that sort of thing. Who cares about the results, right? And then the last part of this whole thing that some of the detractors will bring up is, in racing, there's a weird phenomenon, which has always occurred, but I think it's happening more and more in the Cup Series than we've seen before, and we've seen it throughout the Xfinity and the Truck Series. That is, if someone is willing to pay more than the entirety of the program to do the job, then the person who might be able to outrun or be better than that person, there's absolutely no incentive not to just take the person that was willing to pay to do the job. Does that make sense?
Has there ever been someone who paid to be a quarterback in the NFL?
That is hilarious. That's exactly where my mind went, because the one thing I think about is MotoGP, where I'm like, there can't, the rider means so much in MotoGP. And I think about Supercross the same way. So in those ones, if you paid to do them, and you weren't good enough, it would just destroy the whole basis of the thing they're doing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So they could be the model that somehow they've figured out, where the rider matters so much. Has anyone paid to be an NFL quarterback? Someone look that up. Let us know. We want to know. The quarterback buyer.
Where are the rent-a-ride? Where are the gentleman quarterbacks out there? The gentleman driver quarterbacks.
That's the clip. Welcome to Money Lap. It is Friday, December 6th. We are looking at probably our last show of the year next week, Landon. Maybe we'll do something fun and different for that one. On today's show, though, let's talk about... Yeah, I'm on the right mic.
Sorry about that. It just sounded like it echoed a little bit when you...
Oh, well, it's down here. Hold on. How about that? Intro. Sorry, okay. I am on the right mic, folks. We're not totally bad at this, although we did, take 2 weeks off or a week off. With that, we are winding the year down, so everyone's been obsessed with Spotify Wrapped, and we wanted to do our own version, so I'm just going to do a quick number dump, Landon. I don't even think you've heard this. So between viewers and listeners of this show in 2024, via our numbers, 400,000 people interacted with Money Lab in some capacity over the course of this year. Which is, yep, big numbers, baby. Let's go. That doesn't even include clips and all those which have, get millions of impressions, that sort of thing. So that's amazing. Thank you all. That's a big growth from our single listener and our moms listening at the beginning. So we're really proud about that. I mentioned we'll probably have one more show next week, and then we'll take a break till next year when we return, which I don't know when it will be. So we'll see how we plan that out and what our schedules allow. Let's do the PR lap. We did get a bunch of new Apple reviews in the time we've been off. So this one, Truth 345 on November 23rd, 2024, said 5 stars. Love of all things motorsports. Great show covering all major motorsports with inside NASCAR details. I agree with that. That's a good summary. Do you want the next one?
Keep going. Keep going.
Okay, I'll go. November 23rd as well was a hot day for reviews. Awesome show, 5 stars from Logan924. He's a big Hendrick fan. Great show, must listen every week for race fans. 2 guys who know how to break things down in a fun, unique way. Can't wait for the Kyle Busch episode. Me either. He's here waiting. We're going to probably get him on today. Let's see. Best out there, truly unique. 5 stars. Fireball Turnbull. Parker, Landon, and the Money Lap team do a great job. This is a must-listen show every single week. Parker and Landon get nitty-gritty about behind-the-wheel techniques, and they have very unique takes and insight from other racing podcasts. Very unique. That is always a good term. What else we got? On Spotify, this is from Zach Bishop. Love the show. First saw you two in 2011 at Dover, getting your butts handed to you by the guests in the lobby in a truck and Nationwide car, respectively. What? All right. Didn't know much about y'all back then, but glad this show came to be popular so we get the chance to know who you guys are as people, from Landon's pit strategies to Parker's technical explanations. Those have never happened. It is made for one of the more well-rounded motorsport shows out there. Thanks for doing this, guys. Can't wait for Daytona. We either can't wait. So nothing new on YouTube. Go over there. Leave us a comment. Chat with us. We need you.
No, there was plenty on YouTube. I couldn't choose my favorite one.
We're just a little more selective on which YouTube comments we read on the air.
Sorry, yeah, we had to be selective. There are a lot of haters out there. Josh, you just pointed something good out. Zach was referencing Kyle Busch, KFB, kicking our butts that time period. He's incredible, man. Nobody, I mean, that era of Kyle Busch in Xfinity cars and trucks was just ridiculous. Totally ridiculous.
So you said 400,000 people have interacted with us.
400,000. Yeah.
So if all 400,000 of those people went to spoilerdiecast.com and bought a diecast, I think we could own spoilerdiecast.com.
We might own it at that point.
We might actually own it at that point. We would just have the moneylapdiecast.com.
Sorry, spoiler. This is the first time anyone has done an ad read and then tried to hostilely take over the company. Sorry, spoiler. We would be renegotiating our sponsorship contract with SpoilerDiecast.com.
We need to make sure that all 400,000 of our viewers have not purchased diecast from SpoilerDiecast.com. If you haven't yet, then you need to take a look. Because if you're a racing enthusiast looking for high-quality diecast apparel, look no further than SpoilerDiecast.com, one of the fastest-growing companies in the industry. What sets them apart? Well, let me tell you. First of all, they have the ability to actually take your order and ship it to you same or next day. That's something that the MoneyLapDiecast.com does not have the ability to do. So we will not be running our own diecast store, even if we find out all 400,000 of you are in the market for a diecast, because SpoilerDiecast.com, they pride themselves on exceptional service. They have free shipping on orders over $20. You get a smooth and affordable shopping experience with them, and they have over 1,100 products in stock. MoneyLapDiecast.com has 0 products in stock, okay? So let me just tell you, go to SpoilerDiecast.com for all your motorsports, diecast, dirt, sprint car, Indy car, F1. They're mostly NASCAR, kind of like us, but they've got everything because they're passionate racing fans. SpoilerDiecast.com, constantly growing their offerings. Get your Christmas shopping done right now.
And we promise we will not be creating a hostile takeover of SpoilerDiecast.com anytime soon.
But actually, that would be sick if Spoiler Diecast was like, yo, no lie, we actually did sell 400,000 diecasts this year. All using promo code The Money Lap.
If that's the case, we are no longer a show. We're a diecast retailer. We'll see you later.
Oh my gosh.
The next episode of Money Lap will be just 58 minutes of diecast promotion.
This is now a diecast review channel.
Someone's over there's like listening, is like, what is wrong with these guys? They literally have lost it. It's December and we're talking about racing.
Is there no racing to talk about?
What is wrong?
Not much.
They've just started the show with some sort of asinine financial model, and now they're just talking about diecast.
We're doing everything we can not to talk about track limits on this show.
That and legal jargon.
Before we get into that, I do have an answer about the NFL paying to be a quarterback.
Oh.
No, the answer is after the NFLPA got founded, it's pretty much virtually impossible to do so. You can't. No recorded instance. However, early days, why not just buy a team and help fund it? There were several players who were founders and also signed themselves to play on the team. So, I mean,
sounds like NASCAR. So you're telling me that maybe a NASCAR drivers union could actually solve the problem of, or could play a role in solving the problem of rent-a-rides?
I feel like precedent certainly indicates that
would be interesting.
brain exploded.
Yeah, teams would hate that.
We have just, on December 6th, 2024, maybe solved the biggest conundrum in motorsports worldwide. You're all welcome.
No, we haven't solved it. We've just uncovered a clue. That's it.
The puzzle is becoming clearer as we put it together here. Let's talk some racing, although that's a stretch because the biggest bit of competition that's happening in the NASCAR Cup Series at this time period is the continued legal battle between 2311 Front Row and NASCAR. There was all sorts of things that occurred. Basically, in the last couple of weeks, NASCAR filed to dismiss it. Then 2311 FRM refiled the preliminary injunction. And then there was a lot of information that came out from NASCAR's side of the argument, which was that they would not remove the clause in the Stewart-Haas racing charters that FRM and 2311, apparently have acquired in terms of them releasing them. Because NASCAR basically, when you acquire a charter, it's contingent on NASCAR basically agreeing to that transfer, right? Which I think is a pretty typical thing across most sports leagues, et cetera, where if a team is transferring, it has to sort of be, allowed. And so that kind of puts those in a bit of question right now. Where else are we at, Landon? That was my summary of what I was thinking about and seeing. As our resident legal person, what am I missing?
Well, I don't know. It's just like we've said. Keep following this story. It's very interesting to me. Obviously, you can start to see if you follow Bob Pockrass. I think he's covering it the best, and you can kind of see NASCAR's position in all of this. I think it's when we first started talking about this a couple months ago, all this public opinion and perception was in the team's favor because they were the only ones that had their message out, right? Mm-hmm. Now that we're starting to see NASCAR filings and responses, I think you're kind of starting to see what NASCAR's position in all this is, and it seems pretty aggressive to me, which as it should be. But I think in one of the most recent ones, NASCAR made reference that there is no charter offer available to those teams right now. If they want a charter, their only option is to win this lawsuit. I don't believe that to be true in the end.
Yeah.
I think that the settlement, whatever this settlement ends up being, if there is a settlement, 2311 and FRM may go all the way with this. But if they reach a settlement, I do believe that NASCAR wants 2311 in the charter field. I think they want FRM in the charter field, and they want things back to where it was. But it is interesting to me that obviously in court right now, NASCAR seems to be pretty aggressive about it. So,
yeah, and to expand on those SHR charters, the question is, are they kind of in limbo at that point? Was there a provision? Did they just both buy $20 million pieces of paper that they can't even acquire at this point?
Well,
does SHR keep that sort of thing?
My question
I don't
for
know
you,
the number is 20, by the way. I'm just assuming it's somewhere around 20, from what I understand.
My question for you, and maybe hopefully this doesn't give us hurt the quality of our show here if you don't have the answer, but
oh God,
do we know that
that's never been the case for anyone?
Do we know that 2311 and or FRM has actually transacted for this charter? Have they paid for these charters? Do we know anything about that, or is it?
I do not know.
Okay, because that is an interesting dynamic here. If they're buying the charters, or have bought the charters, or have a contract to buy the charters, is there kind of another lawsuit here that's
team versus team?
Yeah, is
that's what I was thinking about. Like, is there a provision that, like, if NASCAR doesn't accept the transfer, then it's a null acquisition? I would assume. Now, assumptions.
Well, you would think that SHR would be sitting here going, "Hey, I would have sold my charters to somebody else."
Yeah, well, I don't. Like, in their position, it's like, I don't care. You said you were going to buy it. Here's the contract. Where's the money? Right. So
did they pay for it and then lose it immediately, or did they not pay for it and then they strung SHR along, and then is SHR going to sue 2311 for breaching their contract for purchase? Like, I don't. What?
Messy.
We need to get we might need to get Adam Stern back on the show to find out what the details of that are. Because I bet you he knows.
I know. We'll definitely have him next week. I tried to get him on yesterday and today. He's on a little bit vacay, so we couldn't get him on. But we definitely will, because He's a friend of the show, and he always knows great answers.
Josh,
to this
put
stuff.
that in our notes for next week's show. If we're gonna have a show next week, I think we will.
We're
But
gonna build the show in real time, by the way. Don't worry.
It'll be great. We're gonna have an awesome show. It's just gonna be.
Yeah, put that in the notes for next week, and let's see if we can get Stern to answer those questions, because that is, that's another interesting dynamic here. Is who owes who for the SHR charters?
By the way, there's definitely people listening right now thinking like, do these guys even like put a notes together? Do they have a rundown? Do they follow anything? Is this just they just throw up to some mics and press record? It basically is that. Yeah,
let's go.
There is.
I can assure those people I write up a whole show notes, whether or not you guys choose to follow them.
Right.
I did have a question though. In lieu of that, if that money's been transacted, is that not basis for an approval on the preliminary injunction already there?
I don't know. That's too lawyery for me.
Yeah, way too.
Okay.
Josh, you love to get lawyerly.
Sorry, my mom's a lawyer, so it's in the blood. I can't help it.
We're gonna start a new pod, which is the unlawyer lawyers, and
I mean, the team, 2311 or Front Row could have purchased the charter from SHR, and NASCAR could have approved that transfer, and then if the new owners of the charter did not re-sign a charter agreement with NASCAR, then they lost those charters too. But I don't think that's what happened. I think that there's sort of like some kind of contract to purchase between SHR and the other entities, 2311 and Front Row, is what I understand or what I think happened. And so now it makes me wonder if they're not able to consummate that sale or, complete that sale, what are the implications of that? Is Stewart Haas like who are they selling their charter to?
Who's it going to? It's in limbo. Also, I love the use of consummate for a charter sale.
Yeah, what they're all doing with each other.
Legendary. Oh man. So the other night, I was in the city. My best buds from high school. We did this a couple years ago. We all met up in New York and went to this band that we loved in high school called We Are Scientists. And we did this probably like 8 years ago. And so we all met up again, and we went to a bar beforehand. And then, the typical us, it was like, why do you even go to the show? Let's just stay at the bar. But we didn't. We went to the show. Long story short, having a conversation with a buddy of mine who I haven't seen forever. He lives in Alaska. And he's asking me about a NASCAR race car. And he had a comment that just really burned me. And it's December, so we can continue to have these conversations. And we're talking about Teslas and electric cars like the Lucid Air Grand Touring I just had the other day from my friends at the Utopian, and that thing's got 819 horsepower, 885 pound-feet of torque. And he goes, well, the NASCAR race cars you drive, what are they, like 2,000 horsepower, 1,500 horsepower, 1,000 horsepower?
It should be.
And when I had to explain to him that they were actually around 650, the look on his face was unbelievable. And his immediate thought was, and this is his response, but why does your race car have less horsepower than my Tesla?
Oh my gosh.
I crumbled. I died. And on that moment, we had a conversation. I'm like, I'm going to talk about this on the Money Lab. And I bring it up solely, put aside racing and finances and all this stuff. And we talk about often about motorsports is cartoonish. It should be cartoonish. It should just be outlandish, extreme. When you hear a number, it should just make your mind, blow up when any number is said around motorsports, because there's no real reason to race. This is all for entertainment in the end. That is it. Yes, there's some development of technology and that sort of stuff, but let's all be honest, even in F1, that's not really the root cause of why we all tune in and watch. We watch because we're entertained. That's the whole reason for any of this. And when I had to explain that, it just hit me like a frying pan to the face, where I was like, you're right. Why? I don't have an answer. I can't answer that. There's no actual real answer as to why that is the case. So my hope in 2025, we can move that maybe into 26 to discuss the next time I have that discussion where a NASCAR race car has more horsepower than his Tesla. I don't know when it will happen. It's just a hope for the future. But solely so I don't ever have to see that look on someone's face again, because it hurt a lot. Devastating. We don't need to go down the horsepower route. But one other interesting quote that just came out recently was Kyle Larson was chatting somewhere, which Josh didn't put in to give credit, so I don't know where this was. And he basically was talking about next year, and he's hopefully going to be able to continue and get stronger as a team, win more races, lead some more laps, and who knows what the new format will be, is what he said. So maybe it will benefit us somehow. There have been a lot of discussions about new formats. I've heard all sorts of different things and tweaks and that sort of stuff, so I really can't say one way or the other what it's looking like, but it does seem like there is some smoke, and often where there's smoke, there's fire in the chance that there could be a new format of some sort. We'll see. I don't know.
It was on the Racers YouTube channel for Race Industry Week 2024 in an 8-hour video. So
yes, good job getting that out of there. Oh yeah, Race Industry Week. I tuned in for some of that. Some great quotes coming out, by the way. It's sort of like a virtual conference. They've had everyone from Jimmy Johnson, Larson. I saw Chip Ganassi was on there. A lot of big time motorsport people. Pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Weird we weren't invited. What do you think that's about?
Interesting. Yep. We should be. We need to be keynote speakers at that next year.
100%. We are motorsports. There's no motorsports without Money Lap, and there's no Money Lap without motorsports. It's very symbiotic. So Race Industry Week. We're looking at you. You need us. We are the industry. What is that? That's from Entourage? Johnny Drama. Did you watch Entourage?
Yeah, of course.
Johnny Drama, when the agent is like, you're too old to be in this game, whatever, and he's like, I am the game.
Oh man,
I love that one. Well, that's really all we had in NASCAR. So we'll see you later. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye. No, let's dive into open wheel. There's a lot more happening there because the F1 season is ending this upcoming weekend. We did that Las Vegas live stream.
With motorsport.com.
With motorsport.com, which was fun. That was cool. Somehow, by the grace of caffeine, we were able to stay up till 3 a.m. each night talking about F1. But this week, Cadillac / GM approved to enter F1 in 2026 as an 11th team. Huge deal. Massive, massive deal. Sounds like they've spent possibly $1 billion to make this happen.
It's insane.
Insane. Completely
and
insane.
I also saw, I think yesterday, did they announce they've hired Doug Ducart as well?
Yes.
Previously of Spire Motorsports, previously of Ganassi, previously of Hendrick. And Doug was actually the person at Hendrick Motorsports that hired me when I was 17 years old. So he was the first. Yes, they used to call him my dad at Hendrick because he was in charge of me.
So we are one removed from someone who is now being
I might be able to get some tickets to an F1 race.
We're going, baby!
Doug.
Let's go!
We're going
Daddy
F1
Doug.
racing.
Daddy Doug, let's go! He actually,
I was excited to see that.
He was instrumental in the 5 championships in a row for Jimmy Johnson. He was running
absolutely
at the time.
Yes,
yeah,
yep.
So,
and he's been a long time GM guy, Chevy guy. Before Hendrick, he was at Chevy. Has worked with Pratt & Miller on the Corvette program. Did he have some stuff? I'm trying to think if he had more to do with the Corvette program, but he is a veteran of motorsports executive level. So pretty cool to see him part of that program as well.
It's cool, and we did know for a while now that this was most likely coming because of the level of investment that TWG now, which is Dan Tauris and the whole Group 1001 Game Bridge group, right? And so that we knew, I knew the level of investment they were doing over in London. GM was full steam ahead at the GM Technical Center with a lot of F1 stuff. They've been testing on the sim already, and there's all sorts of things being built for it. So it was very evident this was going to happen. I guess the big question mark, and I think a lot of people are leaning that they'll use Ferrari. What do you call it?
Engines,
yes. Wow. Is anyone
it's called Motorsports,
listening?
Parker. It's called Motorsports.
Guys, I've been talking about it for so long.
Hey,
I don't know what to do anymore.
Can I? And this isn't just purely for a self-congratulatory "I told you so," but can we, with some editing magic, Josh, dig back into probably over a year ago episodes and find when I have talked about the scenario of if Andretti can't get this deal through, does Cadillac and GM continue? Because I can see the look on your face, Parker. You remember me talking about
I remember
this.
it, actually. Yes.
I know that I predicted that if Andretti gets in the way of this, that they will just shuck him out and continue pushing Cadillac through into F1.
Give him the boot. Das Boot. Now, Mario Andretti is still on the board, but obviously Michael had some sort of issue between him and Liberty Media, of which we don't know. I don't know if it's personal, whatever, but that...
I think you guys need to see if we can find that. I would love to dig up that conversation and maybe play it here on the show as sort of a flashback and see if anything that I said back then makes sense as to what we're seeing now.
Well, Parker, how long have we spent on this?
Literally 2 hours. We give up. Landon, we're going to take you at your word. You said it. I do remember it. You think Michael and somebody at Liberty fought over a girl at some point? Is that what this is all about? That's always what it is. It's that. It's never anything else.
It's probably the most powerful force in the universe. It can start and end world wars.
It does. Wars have been started for far less. One of the big topics right now, as we head into this Abu Dhabi weekend, we're just past the first 2 practices. I watched FP2 this morning, which was not quite that interesting, other than Williams continued to have more issues. Colapinto went off and damaged his floor. Then Albon had something going on the right rear suspension or brake system, something at the end. His car limped back. But the big thing happening, everyone's talking about, is George Russell, or George Russell, if you listen to our live stream, and Max Verstappen have been chirping at each other in the media and at each other's face. And so much so that George Russell did a press conference yesterday that he basically said Max goes too far, he's threatening violence, and that he won't stand for it. And, this is ridiculous. And it's every time it doesn't go his way, he just lashes out at people and that sort of stuff. And that basically he's a big crybaby. So, pretty interesting, these two. They actually had a dinner where Lewis Hamilton brings all the F1 drivers for a final dinner of the year together. And they made them both sit at at opposite ends. So, well, actually, George arrived late, apparently. And the only 2 seats were right next to Max. And Max is like, come on over here, buddy. And he went and picked up the seat and brought it all the other way to the other side and sat next to Lewis.
Where did this start? I don't understand. I just started seeing this these guys don't run within 3 seconds of each other on the racetrack. So what are we talking about here?
It was qualifying, correct, Josh, at Qatar. And basically, Max sped up to maybe try what George thought was try to get in his way or something as he was going to his main lap, and therefore then George complained to the officials, and Max just lost it, being like, what do you mean, there was nothing I was trying to do, who goes and complains to the officials, so on and so forth. I believe it took the pole away from him because of the penalty or whatever. And so basically he accused George of being a tattletale, and then they just started chirping each other all the time.
Yeah, it was pretty much, it was some qualifying beef, and then George apparently just went and cried to mom and made it sound like it was a lot worse than it was. And historically and with precedent, this is the first time a grid penalty has ever been issued for that kind of on-track action.
Which Qatar was a career weekend for the FIA. They put up career numbers.
Yeah.
It was a triple double, I think you would say, for the FIA.
Oh, one other point on this. George did say that basically Max went up to him and said he'd put me on my effing head in the wall. So to question someone's integrity while saying comments like that is very ironic. I'm not going to take it. People have been bullied by Max for years. I guess he might not only be referencing the fact that Max has absolutely destroyed everyone for 4 years. He must be referencing, obviously, that people like Landon call out Max for being overly aggressive, overspeeding the center of corners to, get the axle ahead so that he can dominate the corner, shoving people off, that sort of thing.
That's racing, baby.
That's racing. Here's the deal. I have never seen a successful F1 driver who goes on to win multiple championships, whether it's Schumacher, whether it was Senna, whether it's Lewis, whether it's Sebastian Vettel, that has not been accused at some point of being, quote, overly aggressive, being, a maniac, psychotic, all these things, because it's a zero-sum game. They want to be the best. The fire is burning. They're going to do whatever it takes. Michael Schumacher, 1997, Perez against Villeneuve. Yes, he turned into him. Of course he turned into him. He was trying to end that. Adelaide, 1994, Damon Hill and him in turn 4. Yeah, he turned into Damon Hill. He was trying to end that and win. Like, that's what it takes.
What? Like, that's such a, you're right. You're so right. And I love it. And it's just like, look at the best performers in any sport. The top 0.1 of 1%. They are absolute killers, right? Max is a absolute killer.
100%.
Dale Earnhardt, Kyle Busch, Tony Stewart, right?
Yep.
Like Jeff Gordon, like just a killer. Like, rip your head off.
They'll do what it
They
takes.
seem like nice guys. They're not.
Nope. The helmet
Right?
goes on. They do whatever it takes, and that's what it. And we've talked about Europe and how when you go over and race in Europe when you're a young driver coming through the ranks, and say you're racing open wheel in America, they would always tell you if you're going to go to Europe or South America, get ready because you're not even prepared for the level of aggression, because it's instilled in you at a young age that you must kill to win, and that's what it takes, and that's the only thing that matters is winning. And therefore, I'm not surprised. And when the value to winning and being the best is as big as it is in F1, you do what it takes. And that's, cry later. Sorry. You deal with it at the end. And then you can get done and you can go on a, personality tour a la Sebastian Vettel or, who else has done that sort of thing?
Yeah, but I don't think Max is doing any personality tours anytime
He's
soon.
not gonna do it. He doesn't give a shit. He really doesn't. He also announced he's having a baby with, what's her name? Now I'm blanking. It's Nelson Piquet's sister, Junior's sister, Nelson Piquet Senior's daughter, Kelly Piquet. That's who it is. That's right. So they're pregnant. He's gonna be a dad. He's already sort of a stepdad to her first child, which was with Danny Kvyat. Welcome to
congratulations
Bravo.
to the Verstappen family.
Yeah, well, welcome to Bravo on the Money Lap show. We're now just a reality show. What else should we talk about?
Let's continue.
Okay. Yeah, you can tell how much we like doing that. That's fun.
We talk about motorsports celebrity gossip news, and we come to a screeching halt.
We got nothing to say. Nothing. We need a third person for that one. We need someone to come in here and be our Hollywood reporter, because we're not good at it. I just genuinely, it's tough for me to care sometimes. I care about what happens on the track, a little bit of what affects him on track, but it's tough to really care about that stuff. You mentioned the FIA had a record weekend in Qatar. They did. It was insane. The penalty for Lando Norris seemed like the death penalty for jaywalking, essentially. He basically went too fast and a yellow that was called for a mirror that had sat there for a couple laps and was assessed a drive-through penalty while racing for the lead at the end of the race. And he still got back to the points, but it killed his race. And it was one of the more insane things. And it was just a weekend full of calls and penalties like that. Right after the FIA had made all these changes, it doesn't look good. Once again, they're part of the show.
Well, and we're reaching the stage of the year. If you are a fringe F1 fan, or you're getting into F1, or if you're any kind of F1 fan, and you're sad that the racing season is coming to an end, don't be sad, because this is when F1 drama comes to life. This is what F1 is good at. Is in the off season, will find drama. They will continue to pump it through the media. We will have plenty of F1 drama stories to talk about through the off season, because you've got, first of all, it's like there's 2 races left to go in the season. I understand there's still very important constructors championship points at stake, but it's like the FIA is like, okay, drivers championship is set. What kind of penalties can we put out that aren't have little to no impact on anything, but we can just wield our power? We can, whatever. We're part of the story. It's almost like what we saw in Qatar. I don't know. That's probably a bad analysis of it all, but at the end of the day, it's like
it was terrible. But I'll let it go.
It's like the like we've seen last year, the year before, every year going into this off season. F1 drama is cranking up. There will be plenty of off-track drama, and it seems like the FIA themselves is no shortage of that, with Mohammed bin Sulayem firing people and making personnel changes, and it's quite interesting. And
he had a quote that was basically like, all the drivers need to shut up. They don't have anything to do with this. And I was like, oh god. In an era where everyone's all like, oh, you gotta love each other and respect each other and everything, he's just like, shut up. I'm the boss now. You listen.
It does make you wonder where this what more is going on here, where this sort of ego or power struggle is coming from.
There's a power dynamic here that's bubbling and sort of, in a lot of respects, like evolving in front of us, where he's basically showing we have all the power.
Right. The other one, the other kind of storyline, and this isn't really storyline, but it's just if you're kind of interested in some of the juicy drama, I think that and it's already kind of starting, but over the next couple of weeks, we're probably going to get some great hot takes and news, and people finally letting loose. Knowing Helmut Marko, Christian Horner, Checo, we're going to finally start seeing the truth about how they feel about each other over the next couple weeks, now that it is more widely known that Perez is leaving Red Bull, and it will be even more dramatic if Red Bull does not win the Constructors' Championship.
Well, if you want, so you said widely known he's leaving. So he just put out a thing today saying basically, I'm here. I'm staying. I signed a contract. I intend to race. So, and they basically have, I believe, maybe the way the contract is, they're basically at a point where I assume they're like, hey, man, you have to leave, but, like, we'll just give you all this money. Just leave. Like, you're that bad. And he's like, I'm not leaving.
Did they not... Did you see the part where he recently said something about they didn't want to win the Constructors, or they made...
No, I didn't see that. What?
I need to pull this up.
I'm pretty sure the comment was, it would have been nice if Red Bull Racing actually tried to win the Constructors' Championship or something along the lines of that.
Always a great... That is just a post-season roundup quote of a driver that is definitely returning to his seat.
It'd be nice if they tried. Well, bud, you haven't really scored many points in the last 15 races since you signed this contract. Right. It has been an abysmal run.
Yep.
I was behind him, man. I thought he'd turn around at some point, but this has just not happened. It has not occurred.
He may have a contract to drive next year, but those are words spoken by a guy that plans to get paid to sit on his butt.
Yeah.
So
he's going to be
stay tuned to F1 for all of your stories and
now, if this
keep up on the Checo drama.
If this domino falls, you have Liam Lawson, who's joined the Cash RB, whatever you want to call it, team, former AlphaTauri, midway through the season, replacing Daniel Ricciardo. He's apparently going to be the next in line, which usurps Yuki Tsunoda, which Yuki has performed really well over the course of the season. He had that wonderful quote back at Vegas, which is, they can keep sending me people and I'll keep destroying them, in terms of Red Bull putting new teammates with him and him beating them. So that's a bit of controversy as to what's occurring there. Maybe they just feel like there's more upside for Liam Lawson. I don't know. You also have if this does occur, Franco Colapinto, who was in discussions with Red Bull until he had his bunch of wrecks in a row, could he be in the discussion to go to Visa Cash RB? So there's a lot of dominoes that occur and fall if Perez is removed from that seat and it causes a change in that sort of stuff. And then there's the wild card, of which everyone's discussed, but it's kind of gone quiet, was the idea of Carlos Sainz being bought out of Williams and going to be in that second seat at Red Bull.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's more. I'm as a driver, I am not rooting for Checo to lose his ride. I don't want someone to lose their ride in an unfair manner for the sake of my own entertainment. But I am very interested in what happens if Red Bull replaces him. Because just, I still believe that Max Verstappen is leaps and bounds elite above almost any other driver in that field. But it would be interesting to see him have a real challenger. Now, that's not your model of how you believe Red Bull F1's team operates anyways, because you believe that they want a clear number two. And maybe, Checo even underperformed at that level, more so the later parts of this year than maybe last year or the year before. But I think that a clear challenger to Max would just kind of re-energize my interest in Red Bull Racing and what that team has going on.
Well, we'll follow it. It's going to continue to be a thing. Could he go out there? I saw he was pretty fast in FP2 compared to Max. Could he go out there and save his ride in the final race of the season?
No, I think it's too late.
It's too late.
Sorry to give you such a quick answer on that, but
no, it's good. I'm just curious.
No, I mean that's a great point, and I think that he could, he could get some kind of extraordinary result this weekend. But you and I both know, in our experience in motorsports, that ship has sailed. Whatever decision they've made has already been made.
And a lot of times people put too much stock in like a result saving it. But the only reason I bring it up is because if you remember when he was at Force India at the end of his contract there, he was able to win at Bahrain, and that's what catapulted him into having a ride again into Red Bull. So he did it once. Could he do it again? From salvage a dying career, a career on the verge of an end. We'll see. So, and also, speaking of just F1 tangent news, Logan Sargent was announced to be a part of the Hyundai LMDH program, hypercar program, in WEC for next year. He went and tested IndyCar, that sort of thing. And there's Kevin Magnussen joined. Which one did he join? He joined in one of those programs as well in sports cars. So he's off to go do that. The thing for Perez that's kind of interesting is like when you've been this bad, does someone try and salvage it, right? Does someone out there in sports cars or IndyCar? I think he said no to IndyCar already. But sports cars, do they try and probably yes? You think so?
Yes, the answer is yes, because in all it's another quick answer for me on this stuff. To me, the answer is yes, because how many times have you seen a driver who severely underperformed in top equipment still get a ride in that next level down equipment for the sole reason that they were in top equipment? They had a look inside the studio, right? They had a look inside the secret room. And so those teams, they go, he underperformed, but he was there, right? We need to know more about that.
Yep.
And so
it's Mike Shank's theory, which is why Logan Sargent got the test with them, which was, hey, this guy holds a super license. If you hold a super license, we're going to give you a test and see what you got, because who knows? There's only 20 of those out there. Let's give this guy a shot, because there's only 20 of them in the world. And I think he could fall into that for sure if he wants to go do it. So, some news we never like to see in motorsports, considering it ain't chassis sports and it ain't driver sports. It's motorsports. Toyota is exiting the NHRA in 2025 as a manufacturer after originally entering back in 2002. We did see them announce that Toyota Gazoo was going to do that technical partnership with Haas, could be leading to an effort to enter F1 again after the last one was a bit of a disaster back in the early and mid-2000s. Could they be putting the budgets in the right places and moving things around to go make that attempt? I don't know, in a full capacity. But they did announce they're exiting NHRA. So
that's a huge move for Toyota. And it shouldn't be taken lightly, but that would be my assessment. They're doing it for a reason. And I don't think the reason is that Toyota's getting any smaller.
Also, every time in the show notes that we do actually have, if you don't believe us, we actually do have show notes, even though we rarely follow them. We put a weekend ahead with all the motorsports that's occurring in the upcoming weekend. This weekend, it is really, really simple. It is the Etihad Airways Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Enjoy. That is all that is out there. So we don't have much else to look forward to. It's just F1. We're late in the season. It's December. Not a lot of motorsports occurs at this time. So that's all we got this weekend, Landon.
Awesome. Well, there's your racing to watch.
No, let's we're not done. Duh. We're going to bring on the guy we've been talking about all year. He is one of the winningest Xfinity Truck Series drivers.
Parker.
He's two-time Cup. What's up?
I think his internet went out. I don't think he's connected anymore.
That's it. We'll see you next week for the last show of the year. This is just death. You know what? Screw it. Thanks for listening or watching. If you want to be heard on this show, go to moneylap.com to leave us a voicemail. Be funny, be irreverent, or be insightful, but don't be dumb. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. That helps us grow. And if you're listening, please leave us a 5-star review to be featured on this show. Follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We'll see you there.